Welcome back to Accessible Intelligence, where we help young professionals do more with less. This is the final episode of, I guess we could call it season one. And if you've been an avid fan, you understand now that each episode we have a point person. And today we're wrapping it up with Hillary. So, Hillary, why is this episode involving Londani, tech, young professionals? We're going to be talking about other things too. To set this video game, set the stage a bit for us.
Yeah, so really understanding the gravity of the fact that this is our last episode for this season, if you will, as you mentioned. I just want to think kind of about sort of really taking a step back, right? We've talked a lot about AI, we've talked a lot about its core developments, talked about startups, ChatGPT, what have you, right? But I think going back to the purpose of this podcast, it's a sense that because we are at the ages that we are sort of and like exist at this particular point of technological innovation, like we have a unique perspective on technology just by virtue of being like 23, 24, right? Actually, I think all of us are 23, right?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're 23 and like we've kind of had an interesting relationship with tech all our lives, right? Like now we're talking about AI as kind of like the new thing, but like we grew up with, you know, like printers and like flip phones and like camcorders, digital cameras, which all evolved into these different things now. But like we were there for that evolution, right? And now we're also here for this new evolution when it comes to AI. So I think I just kind of wanted to understand this current moment a little bit better by putting things into historical context. So again, drawing upon our experiences really growing up and how our relationships, technology, broadly speaking, have evolved over time. And thinking about the connection to Mamdani, right? Like, um, big event, broadly speaking, right?
Yeah, for those who don't know, this week, Zohran Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York, the youngest mayor, I think, in history, or at least a very long time. I think at some point it kind of becomes the same thing, and he won by just being super active, not only on the ground, which he did, but being able to create a digital moment that, at least for me, reminded me a bit of our most successful past presidential candidates, somebody like Obama in 2008 or an upset victory like Trump in 2016. So that, I think, for me, culminates a lot of all of those digital movements of how young people who grew up as tech was evolving at this pretty breakneck pace resulted in just another shift, pretty big shift in our political landscape.
Yeah, and I would add, like, obviously there were so many things that led to Mamdani's victory. Like, you can talk about it from a political sense, economic sense, social sense, what have you, right? But specifically, we're going to look at it from the perspective of tech because that was a big part of sort of his campaign. And so just with the context of how each of the four of us have built a relationship with tech in our 23 years of existence, how do we get to this current moment in New York City?
Yeah, let's kick it off with Austin, with the very easy to jump from politics topic to video games. So, Austin, you have been self-described as a gamer. Can you please explain that to people who don't know?
Yeah. So, everyone else in the podcast wanted to talk about weird stuff like politics and Mamdani, but I was told I had the opportunity to talk about video games. And I think this is probably the only chance I'll be able to do so in a somewhat professional context.
For sure, there'll be more.
So I'll, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit. I do want to afterwards maybe talk about how social media and the internet plays into politics, because I actually read something right before this about that and about Obama. But specifically with video games, I wanted to talk about that because, as you said, our generation at large has been interacting with the internet, with online everything for a long time. But I think people who were in this genre of video games actually had a very unique relationship. And so I can talk about the hardware, software side, which is, the actual video game consoles, or the software, which is the video games themselves. But what I want to talk about are the people who actually were in this zone. And, it might be hard to believe, but actually video games and AI are very linked. First of all, just because the big companies now like NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, for the past 3-4 years, they've been these big semiconductor, inextricably linked with AI companies. But before that, they were all household gaming names in terms of the semiconductors that now power these data centers were the ones that would be used in, in a gaming console or in building a PC, a personal computer, which is what a lot of people use to play video games. So not only is there that tie, in that I think this hardware aspect of AI is so attached to people who played, but I think the type of person and how I saw playing video games growing up was very unique compared to the general population, even among people now who are our generation of being AI native, being, internet native. And I say that because before it became popular to be like cripplingly online and to be always on TikTok, social media, these were the type of people who I think personally were the first, most digital native people. These were the type of people who, they would come back from school. There are a lot of types of people in this camp, but these are the type of people who would generally play or be on the internet for a wide period of time. So, well, we don't need to talk about that. But no, I was also in that camp. And I think, first of all, this is not only the place where a lot of online culture in the form of memes came from, because it was people who were so often online that it became its own community, but also in the sense of when I was growing up, video games was always to me the almost defining part of someone who's technologically, what's the word? Technologically savvy. Yeah. It's the type of people who would have the gaming computer, who would have the PC, would also typically be the type of people who did coding, the type of people who, even nowadays when Hillary has a tech question, she comes to me, and I think there is a sense of, you just have had so much experience with this general technology that you've built up what has now become one of the biggest marketable aspects of especially young professionals is this technological savviness with AI, but also in general. And so I think that's why, to me, video games was a very unique thing, because even among people who are a generation of technologically savvy people, I think this was, to me, inextricably linked as people who are on the most integrated, the most aware. And I think that still carries today.
Austin, did you consider yourself like a very techie computer guy growing up?
I guess so. And this is where there's a little bit of distinction, because I was never on the CS side, but I think I had an awareness beyond most people in terms of just, working your way around a computer or, just anything software and internet related, just because there was that much more experience, and it was such a part of my life.
Well, just to quickly respond to you for a second, I will say, okay, yes, I do ask you for tech help. You're good at it. I will also say that the other person I would ask for a lot of tech help, that was also my dad. And he is considerably older than you, did not grow up in a tech generation, did not play video games, but he has that, what people would say, just, like old school, like understand how things work, right? He was an engineer. He had that background. So I do want to just add a little bit of nuance into that as well, which is like, yes, you have that ability from having grown up with that specific tech, but I also do think it's not necessarily always tech specific. And there is you can say like more engineering, more practical general foundation to technology that that you can understand having not just directly sort of grown up with it. So I just want to raise that point.
So how have video games changed since you were playing them as a kid to now? Because I think, as somebody who did play a little bit growing up, like, I'm curious if you've seen any market developments now, because you ended your last thing by saying you feel like it's still the case today that the people who are playing video games are usually the more tech savvy, but are those games different in any significant way?
I do think it's in a way democratized a lot, just because I think as we were growing up, you had the first of these more accessible formats, which is like phone app games. You know, you had Flappy Bird, which was one of the first big ones. And I think that was when we were in high school or late middle school, one of those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
But before that, you didn't have that much. I mean, you played Candy Crush. Play Candy Crush. She's level like 5,000.
Oh.
Wow.
But I think that trend of more accessible has only grown, but I think it's very devoid of the backgrounds that it tends to bring. Just because if you're on a phone, the more accessible something is, it just means the less you have to get into the back
Sure.
stage of it. The less you have to either try to download something or try to work your way through the back files or something in that aspect, because that's the whole point of it, is that you can just have a phone and instantly start playing it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Speaking of phones, I think that could pivot to you, Hill, and I know you wanted to talk about the iPhone and start wherever you want with that, but what got you starting to think about something that we now use constantly?
Yeah. Actually, maybe I'll take it a step back. Just phones generally. And I think that maybe is a good segue from games as well, because actually, I think when my mom first got her flip phone, the first thing I did with it was like play games on it.
Mm.
Actually, and like I'm not a gamer. I also like, if I'm being honest, I don't fully know how the games worked. Like I played on them. I was like, oh, this is super cool. Like there's a function where you can like they're free games. I think you had to pay for them at some point. I really did not know how it worked. So like all that is to say, when my mom got her first flip phone, sometime when I was in elementary school, that was like my first encounter with the technology. And it was very much like a new thing where it was like, oh wow, now you have a portable device. Like you don't just need to sort of call people on your landline anymore. Right. And then in terms of my experience with it was obviously like, oh, this is a super cool gadget. Like it's a device that you can just bring around with you, which I just thought was very cool conceptually, right? But then, and I actually, I called people a lot back then. I liked using it to like call my friends. So I thought it was super cool. Again, this like really just new experience that I didn't have access to before. Like, for example, if I wanted to call my friend, I didn't have to just like sit at the landline anymore. I could
Yeah.
just walk around my house, or well, I typically wouldn't be bringing my mom's phone outside of the house. And I was also like 7. So
Yeah.
typically in the house, I would be walking around. And it was just a super cool experience. It was like the novelty of it all that like just made it exciting. Right? It's probably the same thing as calling a landline. Like that wasn't much different, but I was able to have this new experience. And then when it came to gaming, didn't know anything about games, but I was like, oh, there's this functionality on this phone to play games. It was some sort of like fighting game. I legitimately do not know the rules to this game. And it like looking back, it actually astounds me that I probably spent like a couple of hours like every week just playing it because I had no idea what was going on. But it was just again the novelty of it all, being like, oh my god, like inside this little screen where you can call people, you can text people as well. There is like this experience that you can just play on. So that was very much sort of the beginnings of my introduction to tech and like portable devices more generally, which is we talked before about this concept of play and entertainment. And I think that was very much evident even in something as practical as a phone.
Yeah. What was the age that everybody got their first phone? Do you remember? I think I was 10 when I got my first.
Like personal phone, like you owned it.
Well, I mean your parents, but yes, like obviously you did not pay for it and all.
Yes, but like
That.
okay, fair.
Yeah.
I was mid to late high school, just because
Your first phone?
maybe it's tied to playing the video games part, but I didn't really need it.
Wow. So,
Well,
In fact, my mom kept offering, and I think she was expecting me to want it,
oh my god. Okay.
but I was like, nah, I'm good.
That's pretty
Oh,
late.
that's
Megan,
impressive.
what about you?
yeah. I had a flip phone for a while for like emergency reasons, but I only got an iPhone until like maybe sixth grade actually. 6th grade, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got my mom's hand-me-down iPhone in 7th grade, and I actually got service on it in 8th grade.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
just an iPod until then.
I also didn't have service on my first one. It was like a slide phone. And
Yeah.
I was like, and I couldn't understand that concept of like a phone not being able to call. So my parents like explaining to me, I was like, okay, right, but like I'll just call in case of emergency. Like, no, you can't call. And I'm like, right, but in case of an emergency, it was a learning moment for Sam.
So you talked about getting this phone and it
My mom
having,
got
yeah, you didn't take out the loan as we just established. But you talked about the wonder of it, especially with all these different capabilities, apps, video games. I wonder what do you think about now? It seems like there's almost this backlash of all these potentials of a phone are now being seen as addictive. They're being seen as, taking away from the real world. And there's been this return in some areas. I sent an article about tech Luddites popping up again, but about having phones that are basically like forcibly reduced in potential. Either that they're too heavy to really be able to hold above you as you scroll in bed, or they literally just don't have the ability to download apps like video games or to ping you to keep your awareness. So what do you think about something that once was so basically magical and how now there's a whole backlash against it? And I'm sure there was back then too, but now it seems to be more and more prevalent, especially with AI becoming a thing.
That's a good question. I think times are very different back then. I think it's all relative, right? Back then, even though I was spending like a lot of time with my mom's flip phone, which is kind of sad to say now, but um, relatively speaking, but like that was not the majority of my life. I did not own a phone. The experience, like you're talking about having like, able to call, able to text, take pictures, have games, but those were all very limited functions, right? To be clear, like at the time, like in terms of, to your point about service, like my parents had like like it was not unlimited phone calls. Like they had a limited number of like hours every month, and also they couldn't send text messages at first either. So like those from a service perspective were also very limited. No internet, none of that. And I think in that sense, like the phone was novel to me because it was very different from the other aspects of my lived reality, right? Like it was like times when I was like, oh, like I would be shopping and I would be bored. I'd be like, normally I would just be bored and exist, but now I had like something fun to just like play around with. But now I think it's like the expectations are different. It's not so much people don't. I don't think people expect to be bored in the same way. People, like that feeling still exists, but like you always have something else you could be doing, right? Like I feel like that's just the internet has become so pervasive to the point where you can just sort of use it. Where technology generally has become so pervasive, where you can just use it whenever you're looking for a distraction. So I think it's all relative in that sense. Where now we're trying to scale back because it's become such a big thing, but back then, obviously we didn't need to because it was, even at its height, it was like such a small part of our lives.
I feel like for me as well, a big shift was when I started using my phone to listen to music. And I think I remember the early days of YouTube. I think the first like viral video I watched was like Baby by Justin Bieber, and everybody said it sounded like a girl. It's a whole debate. But I remember like Spotify getting bigger in high school, and I know it's still big. I'm on Apple Music now, so I'm not like fully in that world, but I know it's still big. And I remember before I was paying for my own music subscriptions, my dad was like, "Do you still need this?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I think this is probably my most used app out of everything, like either actively or just when I'm walking. And then that's when all the headphone stuff started coming up too. But Meg, I know you wanted to talk about Spotify and streaming, so curious to hear about your start with this very, I would say, like particular way we consume music now.
Yeah. I got really interested in understanding the evolution of music recently. And so I guess we can go back to like analog music, but originally music was played on, records and it was very clunky. You couldn't take music with you. So before like we had records, we had live music, and then those were translated onto records that we could play. But then what came out were CDs. and people could take these smaller discs around and put in their headphones and walk around with music, and then suddenly it was portable, which is crazy. But something that I distinctly remember growing up was my mom had an MP3 player, and my sister and I would fight over this little MP3 player because what was really cool about it was that you no longer had to listen to an entire CD or buy a whole CD's worth of music in order to just play one song. And with this MP3 player, you could just download the songs that you wanted from different albums, from different artists, and just have it on like a little player that you could play anywhere. And I thought that was like insane. Um, and I think that kind of segued into the iPod Touch, or the iPod, which was just like a tiny little music player where you could do exactly that, but you could like forward through music. You could download whatever music you wanted. And in like the Silicon Valley tech scene, that gave rise to all of these sort of like offshoot companies that like Napier that would let you download music illegally for free.
Right.
Yeah. And then now we have Pandora, we have Spotify, we have Apple Music. And I think kind of growing up and kind of really being a part of that evolution of how we consume music and how we enjoy music has been fascinating, because technology has absolutely been a vehicle for helping to expand the reach of music and the accessibility of music and just how we consume and entertain. Yeah, and now there are AIs on my Spotify that can like curate content for me, which is crazy. So yeah, all
Do you
very related.
use the AI DJ on Spotify?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes like you just don't want to you just want something new, and I just use the AI to like introduce me to new music that I might like. So I found it kind of cool.
My favorite part about the AI aspect of Spotify is my friend Ben uses it, and I'm not entirely sure what it is because I don't have it, but I'm sure maybe you know, but there's a way that it creates a vibe for you, like a playlist, and it names it. And he has some of the craziest names for his, like it'll be like a Sunday morning. It's like nice outside, and it'll be like depressed sad boy playlist for your Sunday. And it's just always some genre of like just sad.
Sure.
There's never not, even if it's like a beautiful day. And he's like happy. It'll be like, yeah, just sad boy music for the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from, but it's interesting with AI integration, how it's almost attaching an identity to you because of the music you listen to.
Yeah. For those who might be saying, oh, Ben sounds familiar, he was brought up in the last episode as the one who used ChatGPT to talk to Hillary for the first time. So check out that episode if curious. But Megan, I'm wonder if you've talked to other people about this Spotify AI use, because actually on the other podcast, not this one, I have talked to a different friend about how she's pretty against using AI, especially for Spotify, which is an app she deeply cares about. So have you run into any people who don't use it? Because I actually thought that's where you're going with it. So I'm curious if there has been any conversations you've had on that front.
Yeah, that's really a good question. I actually met a founder in London who's building a Spotify alternative called Listen. And the whole point is that like it's no AI. It's no AI, and it's supposed to be more ethical for creators because more of the proceeds from their listens goes directly to them. But like there's definitely a wave of people who are just like very anti AI in the music industry. And I think that's totally valid too. But it's been interesting to kind of actually meet like these founders. But yeah, there's also, I don't know if you guys have been listening to like the AI music on Spotify, but for the first time very recently, I think this was last week, an AI artist reached like the top charts. She's completely AI generated, has her own like social media presence, and she's been popping off, which is crazy because I guess maybe this is a commentary on whether people really do care or are really looking into the artists that they're listening to.
Yeah, I think something I had been seeing in the past year are popular songs being covered by other popular artists as if they had sung it, like a Miley Cyrus song being covered by Ariana Grande, but it's all with AI, or like a Drake song that has a different vocalist. I think Drake or somebody else like was making a fuss about it. And I mean that in like a value neutral way. Like maybe like you should be, I think, rightfully questioning if that should be allowed. So there's also the AIification of existing humans onto other human art. It's almost like deep fake music. That's how I would put it. Do you want to say something?
I was going to go back to sort of an earlier point just about not AI music as much, but more about specifically the Spotify DJ. I will say I'm not a fan. So I also, like Sam, I thought you were going in a more negative direction with that because I kind of see what they're doing, but then I feel like it just weirdly I just feel like the music doesn't actually end up with what I want to hear. And I much prefer, instead of, I don't know how the algorithm works. I don't know anything like technically about it, but I would much prefer like their country mix or their pop mix or their chill, like their more traditional ones, which I think go more specific into genres rather than trying to like amalgamate them for me, because I think I have different moods on different days. Right.
Not always sad boy.
Not always sad boy. And I feel like that's such a reinforcing pattern as well. Anyways, that aside. But yeah, so I personally don't like it as much. But that's just my perspective.
Megan, fight back.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see that perspective, but I also I think it's so new. Like it's kind of like ChatGPT kind of was awful when it first came out, but imagine like a year from now, this AI DJ could get you exactly in the right mood on the right day at the right time. Like I could see how that could be cool. Or if you wanted to curate a vibe but not spend the time curating a playlist. You see it's my birthday, I want Chapel Roan and that sort of thing. Make me a playlist and it just curates a playlist for you. Like I could totally see myself using that. So maybe that's just me, but
there clearly are different customers involved here, which is great. That's why Spotify has been so successful.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is a thing already, but now that you say that, I can definitely see a universe where there's also ChatGPT like prompt window. Say,
what are you in the mood for?
Cooking food, make a playlist with Italian cooking music. And then it just does it for you. And all you give it is this natural language prompts and it returns with music.
Yeah.
We should tell Spotify this. I feel like,
whoever has a direct line, if you could just activate it. Maybe one of our listeners also, if you can just let
I'll put their name right here if you
we'll add it to the long list of brands that Austin is representing today, and our potential sponsors, I guess, if we're promoting them.
Yes.
Okay. Let's move on to Mandani and see how this all coalesces into what I think was a very young people centric victory. So as we talked about at the beginning, I decided to consult Notion AI to get a bit more specific on why his win is historic. So there's a couple of firsts. He's New York City's first Muslim mayor, first Asian American mayor, and the city's first immigrant mayor in roughly 8 decades. At 34, he's the youngest New York City mayor in modern city history. He's the first openly Democratic Socialist or DSA endorsed candidate to win the New York City mayoral race, signaling a major leftward shift. He technically upset a former governor in Andrew Cuomo by mobilizing young voters, renters, organized laborers, and this is, I think, this more Notion AI speaking, but it's seen as a seismic shift within the Democratic Party and inspiration internationally, especially in Uganda, where Mandani was born. So let's just first do initial impressions. Hillary, Megan, you guys are New York born and bred. So let's start with you guys, especially since one of you experienced it here and one experienced it in London. So I'm curious how you guys felt on Tuesday night.
Megan, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I was shocked how many people in the UK were following the New York City mayoral election. It was everyone. I swear, almost everyone I talked to was like, "Are you excited for the elections tonight?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm honestly shocked you guys follow this." But it was such an international phenomenon, which I was not expecting for a mayoral election. I think that really shocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from London, I was just surprised at how many people were following it, but I think that just goes to show what a role media plays in politics right now and how it can bring elections that are seemingly very local, just like international. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty shocking. Like, and I don't know if it wasn't Mandani specifically, it would be that internationally spoken about
Right.
either. Hill, what about you?
I will say that I feel like I personally experienced his campaign in 2 stages. The first being like, leading up to the primaries, and the second actually sort of post-election. So I feel like the primaries were the very contentious one, right? Because that's where you had there were a lot of people in the race, right? We couldn't have necessarily, I don't think anyone could have predicted what would have happened with like Cuomo, for example, or like Brad Landler, right? Or like, it was like a competitive race. And, you know, I didn't encounter too much media of him at the time. Maybe that's my bias. I don't mean my bias. Hey, listen, it's a Democratic primary, okay, Austin? But like, I didn't, I don't know if it was the algorithm. I don't know if it was I wasn't online as much, or maybe there just wasn't as much content, right?
Yeah.
But back then, I wasn't paying too much attention, right? Like, didn't know too much of his platforms. If anything, it was like, oh, like it was the sensational things that sort of came up, right? And at the same time, like leading up to the primaries, there was also a lot of, I would say, negative press coverage of him, right? Like
Sure.
the New York Times, like explicitly sort of did not endorse him, sort of had a more critical actually piece about it come out. And there were other pieces as well, like just general like institutional media and even institutional Democrats.
And also new media
stuff,
too. I mean, the Free Press had always been pretty staunchly against him, but I think especially leading up to the primaries.
Yeah.
So it's not even just institutional
Yeah.
media.
So I would say like leading up to the primaries, I was kind of just like, it felt more like regular politics.
Sure.
I was like, oh, like there are a bunch of candidates, what'll happen will happen.
Right.
But what's interesting is like after the primaries, like things shift, right? Because New York is a solidly Democratic sort of area. So like typically it's like whoever wins the Democratic primary will be the mayor, right? And it was obviously a huge blow to like Cuomo in particular, right? And he, withdrew from the race for like a few days or something like that, right? But it was interesting because it was when he had all this leverage that I saw like his social media explode. Like it was after I'd already been like, oh, like, he's the like Democrat elect. He's the mayor elect at this point.
Right.
Like not literally, right?
The
But
presumptive mayor.
Presumptive. Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. But then I saw all of this media pop off, and then it was actually after it was like after I didn't even have a position on him, but like after he already was in a position of sort of leverage, if you will, that I got to know so much more about him. So it wasn't even, I guess, like convincing him as a candidate for me as much. It was more like, okay, like he's in a pretty good spot. Now let's get to know him more. So that was just kind of my personal experience with his media.
Yeah. Austin, we're both newer to the city. I mean, you've been here for over a year now. How did you react to everything that was happening?
Yeah, I mean, I personally would call myself a New York native. I've been to an AUK.
What?
AUK, They don't know. Don't worry about it.
I actually have no idea what that is.
You don't know what that is? I swear that's a term.
No.
I mean, never mind.
Oh,
Exactly. See, you'll get there eventually. But if you're a couple more years. But yeah, I wanted to bring up 2 quick points then and get to this idea of social media with it. The first is just a reaction to what Megan said in terms of it was such international phenomenon.
Yep.
Phenomenon. And it was surprising why, but I think one of the main reasons was because not just in the US was the Democratic Party and the left at large shell-shocked after the last presidential election, but in Europe and across the world, there is a large uptick in populist, especially right-leaning politics. And so this was looked to as, is this the new method for the left, not just in the US, but literally across the world?
Yeah.
So fascinating how it was so popular, but also how social media was so tied to it, like you said. But to also go on that point, I watched a video actually literally this morning about it. And it was tackling this claim of so many people, including Andrew Cuomo himself, points to the reason Mamdani won as being social media, his usage, and really being able to go and target these younger audiences outside of the traditional, what people are saying is dying media. And the video was actually countering this. It said, actually, if you look at it, Cuomo and Mamdani on, at least I think maybe they used Instagram, I'm not sure what platform, had about the same amount of videos. They both use social media. It wasn't that Mamdani used it more or it put in more effort or made it more, it was less DIY. They tracked the amount of times they talked about rent freezes or affordability or talked about explicit policies. And they showed that across all the videos, his were much more analytical, much more actually towards policy rather than just a nicely edited video.
You're saying Cuomo or Mamdani's were?
Mamdani's were.
Okay.
So they're saying that the amount of social media usage was actually very similar. It was just maybe the type of content he created that actually spoke to people. Just a slight pushback against this idea that social media equals influence. But what I really want to talk about was it's interesting, also tied on that point, that with how everyone's looking at it as social media equals influence, it seems almost very positive. It's like a completely positive connotation to this whole idea that it's empowering the youth. It's an alternative way for these new people to come up and not have to go through the New York Times, not have to go through traditional media sources. But I just read a book about 2 weeks ago that was talking about what it called tech lords, oligarchs, and the influence they increasingly have in politics. And the reason it made this case was by looking at Obama, actually. He was making a claim that in, I think, 2008, maybe 2012, Eric Schmidt, who was the
former CEO of
Google, he took a brief leave in the 2012 campaign to help Obama campaign. And the way he did it was by taking all these data scientists from big tech companies and created a massive database of every voter in the US. And the authors make this claim that this was the first time it was kind of being done in terms of digitalizing voting like that. And what they did was tracked, who, based off every single person who's quite obviously leaning to the right, who's quite obviously leaning to the left, and figured out that they could ignore 90% of the electorate. And the way that Obama would win the election was by focusing explicitly on that 10% who's in the middle, who's potentially persuadable. And so it became this thing that I think we're increasingly seeing now in these swing states, where it's this very small percentage of people that was explicitly targeted with information, either emails or ads or all that type sense, which the author portrayed in a bad way. He was saying this is basically making it so that elections are they're always influence campaigns, but explicitly rigged, obviously is not the right word, but targeted influence campaigns on specific people through this internet. I think it's interesting with how people increasingly see social media as doing something to your brains, that now this has such a positive connotation. And so I was just wondering what you guys thought maybe about that duality of, usually people say social media is too much use, negative, but also here was saying, oh, it's empowering the youth, allowing new avenues for outreach, etc.
Megan, do you want to start as our probably most prolific social media user?
Oh gosh, no, but I just had Austin's point on social media made me think of something. And I think it was interesting, the stats on how Cuomo and Mamdani had a similar amount of videos. But what I think made the biggest difference in that was how the youth, I think, definitely championed Zoran's campaign without him even asking. Because I just maybe most prominently realized this, but a girl from Barnard that I know quite well started the Hot Girls for Zoran campaign.
Oh,
and they made all these shirts that said Hot Girls for Zoran, and all these celebrity models like Emrata started wearing them and posting about it and campaigning for him. And they were just so prevalently on social media. And I think the fact that his base was the one kind of leading these social media campaigns, really proliferated his reach without him even needing to do the posting. So I think it was maybe the fact that Zoran appealed to a lot of the younger social media savvy population in New York definitely benefited him. I think Cuomo, like, definitely his base was an older demographic, and therefore, yeah, I just think that the the young people who are really championing his campaigning and his canvassing really helped. And I think that also goes to show how much influence social media can have in getting your friends to just care about something. So if you see someone posting about Zoran, you're probably going to be like, oh, let me learn more about this guy. And I think that kind of snowball effect is probably what happened there. But yeah, so interesting. How that kind of imbalance because of social media can be a thing.
Something that's kind of interesting here is I would argue that a lot of his social media campaign targeted people who didn't need to be convinced, right? At least in terms of voters, right? It's not like I would argue for the most part, he wasn't mobilizing the people who were largely consuming his social media content. But to your point, Megan, I think it's interesting here because he's targeting them maybe not as voters, but as like his campaigners, right? People who would sort of, they're not like the end voters necessarily, or that's not the focus, right? But it's like, how do you influence people to then bring sort of your campaign into their own networks, right? So in some ways, it is social media, but it's social media with like a outside of social media purpose, right? Because you're trying to tap into like the more, I don't want to say physical because it's not necessarily physical, but like the networks that exist outside of really what you just see on social media, like the people that you go to work with, the people who you like go to school with, etc. So I just want to raise that point.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that. And that's what I was thinking the same after what Megan said about how maybe it wasn't necessarily his social media usage was the difference maker, but the fact that social media exists was the difference maker in terms of, because I think what we're getting at, what Megan was saying, is that it really was youth driven, youth participation. And where are the youth? They're all on social media. And so it wasn't necessarily the case like he was creating this content and was going straight to the people who really cared. But for the people who did care, they were on social media, they were posting about it, which got that name to other people on social media, which got more people to see it. And so it was this way to get this voting pool, this voting block more into the campaign, more into politics. Whereas for Cuomo, like we said, I think it's right to say that it wasn't necessarily his majority base being a younger population. So social media would play less of a role in that. Yeah.
And it's not just the external facing tech, it's also the tech that's on the back end too. The Mamdani campaign used this software called Solidarity Tech, founded by Ian Porto. And it was essentially able to use just a few dozen paid field staff to mobilize about 90,000 volunteers to campaign and canvass, especially on Monday and Tuesday, when people probably are making those last minute decisions that could turn an election. So it's not just, I think, the brilliant social media of whenever I saw a video of it being like warm, sunny, and then he's always smiling. There's like very consistent interactions of like him with various people, various working class people, and then always very good branding. But it's also, once you, to your point, Hillary, like once you're turning from, yes, I'll vote for Mamdani to, yes, I'll vote for Mamdani and I'll also go canvass for him, they had the tech readily available to do so, which I don't think was necessarily always the case. Otherwise, this tech would not exist. Also, it's Ivan Pardo, not Ian. Apologies. I'm sure he's listening. So just making sure we respect the founder of Solidarity Tech. But I think what this means going forward, especially because there definitely will be more people like Mamdani, maybe not Democratic Socialists, but I'm really encouraged to see him kind of break through as a 30-something. And I hope other 30-somethings of like all political ideologies are probably a bit more optimistic now because of this. You have to use technology both on the external face with social media, but also to mobilize people when they have been convinced, either by your social media tactics or elsewhere. I'm sure there's stats, but it is becoming an integral part. And I think it sets up also the 2028 presidential election, because I think what I remember most about last year's election was that Trump and Kamala, more so Trump, like just went on podcasts. Like, I feel like they were always on podcasts. And I think that'll still be true in 2028, but I don't think either of them had a super great social media strategy that was original. Like, I think when I think about Kamala's strategy, it was like Brad, but that's not hers. That's Charlie's. And I think that was the attempt for Kamala to use what would appeal to the youth. But I think it didn't work. I mean, Kamala had a lot going against her, like timing and everything else. Everybody will have different opinions on it. But I think one thing that's clear is that that's not hers to use, versus Mamdani didn't feel like his team was trying to copy anything. It wasn't like Mamdani was trying to be like Addison Rae or like Sabrina Carpenter or, you know, another pop girly. Like, I feel like that's an important lesson for these younger people. It's like, or anybody who's trying to appeal to the youth. Like, I think for everything that seems fake or maybe bad influence on social media, I do think young people generally can discern, like, if this is a genuine attempt at something new, or if you're just trying to like be of the moment, which I think the Kamala campaign fell a bit into.
Yeah, something I will say about Mamdani's strategy, not that I sort of really like understand it that well, but I do think it is a mix of curated videos and also some more candid interactions. And I will also say, like, I think especially that latter one, I think that has an appeal that goes beyond youth. Like, I'll say, for example, Mamdani was doing Tai Chi with these Chinese elders in Chinatown. My dad talked to me about it.
Oh, wow.
Like, he was like, "Did you see this?" And like, I had this happened that day, by the way. Like, I saw the video earlier that day, and later that night, he's like, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, I totally did." And he was like, "Yes." And like, I'm, you know, that's a funny anecdote and whatnot, but like, I think I bring out this idea of like candid social media as well, because I think it speaks to something a little bit more fundamental about tech, which is its exposure, right? It's not necessarily this new, it doesn't have to be a curated experience, but it's like visibility,
Yeah.
right? It's like, you know, maybe candidates do this, like maybe they always did this, right? Like, but now we're seeing it in real time. We're
Right.
seeing Mamdani interact with like, you know, like elderly women doing Tai Chi.
Right.
And it's very special, I think, regardless of your age, to be able to witness something like that. And that adds to the authenticity of a campaign as well.
Right.
I think just one thing to add to that, and maybe what I was trying to get at with the point I made about we're seeing this in a very positive light and questioning that, was just an awareness of the algorithm.
Yeah.
And how that plays such a big role in this. And I think where I see that is usually when people talk about the algorithm, they talk about how it amplifies the extremes.
Yeah.
It amplifies, you know, either, what's the word? Very sensationalist content that tries to get people to react, that tries to grab people, to bring them, keep them in the social media. It's the whole attention economy. And I think what we're seeing here is with Mamdani, he wasn't necessarily sensationalist in that way. I mean, he was, as you said, smiles, sunlight, usually warm videos. But the reason maybe he was so prominent on social media was because the algorithm knew that he was popular. And so it prompts, gives these videos because he was popular.
Sure.
And so I wonder if something to think about with this is, as social media becomes increasingly a platform for politics and for politicians, yes, it's a way, as you said, to give authentic experiences and to share it, but also I wonder if it creates hype trains.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's always the case, but people who blow up will only increasingly blow up. People like, I'm forgetting his name, Brad Landon? Brad, sorry.
Like the
that
comptroller?
shows. The comptroller.
Yeah.
I don't really see a way he could have blown up on Instagram.
Sure.
Maybe he was creating content, but what it maybe goes to show is, and this is maybe something worrying potentially about it, is with the algorithm deciding now who's seeing what, it is creating, I don't want to say creating favorites in terms of like maybe Zuckerberg is saying Mamdani. That doesn't really make sense, but it's putting momentum on people's sides increasingly.
Let's close out with a rapid fire segment. This can be New York, young professional, tech themed. So the first one is obviously a popular slogan that apparently Megan knows the founder of it was Hot Girls for Zoran in the past campaign. So what are you a hot girl for?
Can I start?
Yeah, please.
I'm a hot girl for. I shouldn't have started. I'll say video games.
Video games.
Take it back.
Megan, you have to go. I have to think.
I am. God. I'm a hot girl for dried mango.
Oh, like the Philippine brand one, or did you have a specific brand in mind?
Oh yeah, the Philippine branded one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun for me too.
I'll say I'm a hot girl for critical thinking.
Boring. We already know you're.
You see, everyone thinks critical thinking is boring, but that's why I'm gonna be an advocate for it.
Social media.
I respect it. I respect it.
I'm a hot girl for Venus Williams because she played brilliantly this year, and I got to see her for the first
yes.
time. And I was telling Megan about this, but that was like a lifelong dream that got achieved. So yeah,
Yeah.
hot girl for Venus.
From our resident tennis commentator. Let's go.
Yes, I've given so much tennis commentary over these episodes. Let's see, favorite place to get lunch while you're at work. Like, what's the ideal corporate lunch?
Oh my God.
Well, I don't have the name here. But Sweet Green.
Okay,
Sadly,
Georgetown founded.
I've fallen completely into the slop bowl, but I
That's
love it.
fine.
I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Georgetown founded.
It has a hold on people. Megan, what's the founder lunch?
Oh, for me, it's Sushi Dog. I don't remember if we have that in the US, but It really-
doesn't sound familiar. You didn't take me there when I visited you. I don't know what that
I
says.
know I didn't. But it's good. It's like sushi hot dogs.
I'm sure. Oh wait, you told me about it. We just didn't go. So
I saw under social media.
Oh
You post about it. He talks about it. Yep.
All right, Hill.
My answer is Dig. The OGs
Oh,
know it's called Dig In.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll go by its current name.
When was the last time you did that?
Yeah, when is the last time you went?
Shows.
Okay, it's not near my office, but in an ideal world where I live near a dig or work near a dig. Sorry.
Fair.
So it's convenience. Option my love.
I would say my corporate lunch. I don't know the specific names, but we do Forkable at my company, so it just gets us lunch every day we're in the office. I've had great like Mediterranean bowls. I had this good like Shanghai chicken yesterday, and they clean out the fridge at 2 p.m. on Friday. I had extra chicken, so the way that I was told you circumvent them throwing it out is you like put a stick note like, please don't throw it away. So I did that and I threw it away. So I did not get the extra chicken. I think next time I need to like do 2 sticky notes, 1 English, 1 Spanish, like just like cover my bases. Maybe that also could help. And that has been honestly living in my head a little bit. Like I did not enjoy wasting food, and that was a pretty unintentional food waste. Where's everybody working out these days? Where are the gym memberships going towards? Austin?
Are we trying to get sponsorships?
We can.
Name every brands. Well, I'm gonna take Hillary's answer and say she started. She was told to do 50 push-ups a day.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that. So I'm just gonna stay at my home.
Okay.
But then
Wow.
she acted like she was doing it. Little did I know, I found out the other day she stopped I keeps doing it. So
one person
local
has
trade.
to, yeah, one
But
person has to pick up the slack. Okay, Megan, are you using the gym
I'm
is
using the home gym. Yeah.
like the one in that building or the one in?
The one in this building. Yeah.
It's a nice gym. It's a nice gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple answers. I do have Equinox.
Boo.
Yeah. In addition, I also
Sponsor us.
NYC Urban Volleyball League,
Shout out.
NYC Impact. Thanks for the gym space. Love you. Been on your teams for like 10, 11
A
years.
long time.
Yeah. So lots of opportunities for athletics.
Yes, Hillary's a very active girl, and I will say Equinox because I did sign up, and I don't know if it's worth it yet, but I'm making it worth it. I'm just squeezing out the soap every time I go and just using everything I can. And then one word you're feeling about a Mandani city, like a Mandani mayor city.
Personally, I'm going to say excited, but not because excited for the opportunity, although I am, hopefully, I mean, everyone I should hopes it'll work out.
Right.
But I'm excited to, every time I think I hear or talk to my grandfather, the word socialism is like a boogeyman. It's like, oh, that won't work out. So I'm happy to actually see. Now I'll know whether it works out.
Sure.
If it doesn't.
Yeah, learn by doing. Megan?
I'm hopeful. Feeling hopeful.
Love. That's a great feeling. Hill?
Yeah. I was looking at Austin because I was also going to say excited, but I realized that's also a very generic word. Proud. I think he did a really great job representing a lot of different sectors of New York that I think people who live in New York and expose themselves to different parts of New York see a lot, but now it's on social media and it's become a lot more visible to people who maybe aren't as exposed to it within New York, but also outside of New York.
I love that. I think for me, I'm feeling pretty contemplative. Like these things don't just happen by accident. And I think I pursue somebody who does not agree with a lot of at least what he's stated, which is fine. Like I'm still happy he won, but I think I'm more curious to see how the future people who will run campaigns will make a similar moment. And I think this could be the start of a trend. And with any trend, we'll see a lot of great stories come out of it. All right. So if people are wondering, yes, this is still New York Decoded. This is actually like a backdoor episode, like a backdoor pilot. I think that's what they call it in Hollywood. We're finishing up the Accessible Intelligence series, but given that the three of us are in New York, Megan has ties to New York, we are planning on continuing to understand how New York and AI continue to mix and what that spells for everybody, but specifically young people. So be on the lookout in the new year for more episodes. But until then, we hope you take care. We hope you enjoy the holidays, and you'll probably see us at some point. We'll be making the rounds. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.